The rain hammered against the windows of Marcus Thompson's small apartment as he prepared for another lonely evening. At 32 years old, he had grown accustomed to the silence that filled his home after long days working at the local hardware store. Marcus had never been married, had no children, and his family lived hundreds of miles away. His life followed a predictable routine that rarely changed. That Thursday night in November started like any other. Marcus heated up a frozen dinner, turned on the television, and settled into his worn leather chair. The weather forecast promised more storms throughout the week, and he made mental notes about which sections of the store roof might need checking for leaks. These mundane thoughts occupied his mind as he ate his meal and watched the evening news. Around 9 o'clock, an unusual sound caught his attention. At first he thought it might be the wind rattling something outside, but the noise came again. A soft whimpering that seemed distinctly human. Marcus muted the television and listened carefully. The sound was definitely coming from somewhere near his front door. Curiosity overcame his natural caution as he approached the entrance to his apartment. The whimpering grew louder, and now he could hear it clearly. A baby crying. Marcus lived on the second floor of a modest apartment building. While families with children occupied some of the other units, this sound was different. It was coming from right outside his door. He opened the door slowly and looked down to find a small wicker basket sitting on his doormat. Inside the basket, wrapped in a faded pink blanket, was a tiny baby girl who couldn't have been more than a few weeks old. Her face was red from crying, and her small fists waved in the air as she continued to wail. Marcus stood frozen for several seconds, unable to process what he was seeing. He looked up and down the hallway, expecting to see someone. Perhaps a neighbor playing a prank or a young mother who had momentarily stepped away. The hallway was empty, and the only sounds were the baby's cries and the rain still pounding against the building. Kneeling down beside the basket, Marcus noticed a white envelope tucked under the blanket. His hands trembled slightly as he picked it up and read his name written in careful handwriting across the front. Inside, he found a single sheet of paper with a short message that would change his life forever. The note read, "Marcus, this is Emma. She is your daughter. I cannot take care of her anymore. Please give her the love I cannot provide. I know you will be a good father. I am sorry." Sarah. Marcus read the note 3 times before the words began to make sense. Sarah Mitchell, a woman he had dated briefly 2 years ago. Their relationship had lasted only a few months, ending when Sarah decided to move to another city for a job opportunity. They had lost touch completely after she left, and Marcus had assumed that chapter of his life was permanently closed. Now, as he looked down at the crying infant, memories of Sarah flooded back. She had been kind, but troubled, struggling with personal issues that she never fully explained. Marcus remembered feeling helpless during their time together, wanting to support her, but never quite knowing how. Their breakup had been amicable but final, or so he had thought. The baby's cries grew more intense, snapping Marcus back to the present moment. He realized he couldn't leave her in the hallway, regardless of the circumstances. Carefully, he lifted the basket and brought it inside his apartment. The warmth seemed to calm Emma slightly, though she continued to fuss. Marcus had no experience with babies. He had never changed a diaper, prepared a bottle, or dealt with infant care in any capacity. Panic began to set in as he realized the enormous responsibility that had literally been placed on his doorstep. His first instinct was to call the police or social services. But something stopped him, looking at Emma's small face. Now peaceful as she had momentarily stopped crying, Marcus felt an unexpected surge of protectiveness. The note had claimed she was his daughter, and while he had no way to verify this immediately, the timing seemed possible. If Sarah was telling the truth, this baby was his biological child. The implications were staggering. Marcus had always assumed he would never have children. His life was simple, predictable, and entirely focused on his own needs and wants. The idea of suddenly becoming a father to an infant was both terrifying and overwhelming. As if sensing his internal struggle, Emma began crying again. This time, her wails were more urgent, suggesting she might be hungry or needed a diaper change. Marcus realized that regardless of his fears or doubts, this baby needed immediate care. He couldn't spend the night debating the situation while she suffered. He searched through the basket and found a small diaper bag he hadn't noticed initially. Inside were a few diapers, a can of baby formula, a bottle, and some basic supplies. Sarah had at least provided the essentials needed for Emma's immediate care. Even if she hadn't provided explanations or instructions, Marcus's hands shook as he attempted to mix the formula according to the directions on the can. He had no idea if he was doing it correctly, but Emma's crying motivated him to keep trying. When he finally offered her the bottle, she latched onto it eagerly, her tiny hands gripping his fingers as she drank. The apartment fell quiet except for the soft sounds of Emma feeding. Marcus studied her features, looking for any resemblance to himself or Sarah. She had wispy dark hair and bright blue eyes that seemed to look directly at him. Whether or not she was biologically his child, she was completely dependent on him. Now, as Emma finished her bottle and drifted off to sleep in his arms, Marcus began to understand that his life had just taken a dramatic and irreversible turn. Tomorrow would bring countless challenges and decisions, but tonight, he simply held this tiny person who had appeared so unexpectedly. The rain continued to fall outside, but inside his apartment, everything had changed. Marcus Thompson, who had gone to sleep as a bachelor with no responsibilities beyond himself, would wake up as someone's father. The journey ahead would test him in ways he never imagined, but it would also bring rewards he never dreamed possible. Marcus woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of Emma crying. For a moment, he forgot about the previous evening and wondered why there was a baby in his apartment. Then reality came flooding back as he stumbled out of bed and made his way to the living room, where he had set up a makeshift sleeping area for Emma, using couch cushions and blankets. The next few hours passed in a blur of feeding attempts, diaper changes, and desperate efforts to soothe the fussy infant. Marcus quickly discovered that caring for a baby was far more challenging than he had ever imagined. Every time he thought Emma had settled down, she would start crying again, leaving him feeling helpless and exhausted. By morning, Marcus looked like he had been through a battle. His hair was disheveled, his clothes were stained with baby formula, and dark circles had formed under his eyes. He called in sick to work, knowing he couldn't leave Emma alone and having no idea how to arrange childcare on such short notice. The first order of business was shopping for proper baby supplies. The items Sarah had left would only last a day, or two at most. Marcus strapped Emma into an old car seat he borrowed from his downstairs neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who had grandchildren. The elderly woman had been surprised to see Marcus with a baby, but offered help without asking too many questions. At the baby store, Marcus felt completely overwhelmed by the endless rows of products he had never known existed. Cribs, high chairs, strollers, car seats, bottles, toys, clothes in tiny sizes. The list seemed endless. A helpful sales associate named Jennifer noticed his confused expression and offered assistance. "First-time father?" she asked with a knowing smile. Marcus nodded, not bothering to explain the complicated circumstances. Jennifer guided him through the basics, helping him select essential items like a proper crib, adequate clothing, more formula, diapers, under necessities. The bill was enormous, representing nearly half of Marcus's savings. But he realized Emma's needs had to come first. Setting up the crib in his bedroom took most of the afternoon. Marcus had never been particularly handy with tools in the assembly. Instructions seemed designed to confuse rather than help. Emma watched from her bouncy seat, occasionally making soft cooing sounds that Marcus found oddly encouraging as evening approached. Marcus realized he needed to make some important decisions about Emma's future. The responsible thing would be to contact social services and report the situation. They would investigate Sarah's claims, arrange for paternity testing, ensure Emma received proper care while her legal status was determined. However, something held him back from making that phone call. Perhaps it was the way Emma seemed to calm down when he held her, or how her tiny fingers would wrap around his thumb during feeding time. Despite his inexperience and fear, Marcus was beginning to feel a connection to this little person who had appeared so suddenly in his life. He decided to give himself a few days to adjust before involving authorities. This would give him time to research Sarah's whereabouts and try to understand why she had made this dramatic decision. It would also allow him to determine whether he could realistically provide for Emma's needs as a single father with limited resources. The next morning brought new challenges. Emma developed a slight fever, sending Marcus into a panic. He called his neighbor Mrs. Chen, who came over immediately to assess the situation. Her calm demeanor and practical advice helped settle his nerves. She showed him how to take Emma's temperature properly and explained which symptoms required immediate medical attention versus those that were normal for infants. Babies get fevers sometimes, Mrs. Chen explained as she gently felt Emma's forehead. But you should take her to see a doctor soon anyway. She needs to be checked over and get her vaccinations started. The visit to the pediatric clinic was Marcus's first experience navigating the healthcare system as a guardian. Dr. Williams, a kind woman in her 50s, examined Emma thoroughly and pronounced her healthy despite being slightly underweight. The doctor asked about Emma's birth records and medical history information Marcus didn't have. We'll need to get her proper documentation, Dr. Williams explained. Birth certificate, previous medical records, that sort of thing. Without knowing her exact birth date or her mother's medical history, it's difficult to provide optimal care. Marcus promised to gather the necessary paperwork, though he had no idea how to accomplish this task. Sarah's note had provided no contact information, and he had no way of reaching her. His attempts to find her through social media and online searches had yielded no results. That evening, as Marcus fed Emma her bottle, he found himself talking to her about his day. She seemed to listen intently, her bright eyes focused on his face as he spoke. These one-sided conversations became a comfort to him, helping him process the overwhelming changes in his life. I don't know what I'm doing, little one, he admitted, as Emma sucked contentedly on her bottle. But I'm trying my best to figure it out. Your mama must have had a good reason for bringing you to me, even if I don't understand it yet. Reality of raising a child was becoming clearer each day. Baby formula, diapers, clothes, medical care, and child care would strain Marcus's budget to the breaking point. His job at the hardware store provided a steady but modest income that had been sufficient for his simple lifestyle, but was inadequate for supporting two people. Marcus began researching government assistance programs for single parents. The paperwork was complicated and required documentation he didn't have, but he started the application process anyway. Pride had never been particularly important to him, and Emma's well-being mattered more than his ego. Sleep deprivation was taking its toll on Marcus's physical and emotional health. Emma's schedule was unpredictable, with feeding times occurring every few hours around the clock. Marcus had read that babies eventually developed more regular sleep patterns, but that milestone seemed far in the future. Despite the challenges, Marcus noticed small moments of joy emerging amid the chaos. Emma's first smile, which occurred during a diaper change, melted his heart completely. Her content sighs when she fell asleep in his arms made the sleepless nights feel worthwhile. The way she seemed to recognize his voice and calm down when he spoke to her created a bond he hadn't expected. By the end of the week, Marcus had made his decision. Regardless of whether Emma was biologically his daughter, he wanted to keep her and raise her as his own. The idea of her being placed in foster care or with strangers felt wrong to him now. Whatever Sarah's reasons for leaving Emma with him, he would honor her trust and provide the love and stability this innocent child deserved. The path ahead would be difficult, requiring sacrifices and changes Marcus had never anticipated. But as he looked down at Emma sleeping peacefully in her crib, he felt a sense of purpose he had never experienced before. 2 weeks into his unexpected fatherhood, Marcus realized he needed help managing his new responsibilities. Working full-time while caring for an infant was proving impossible. His supervisor at the hardware store had been understanding about his absences, but Marcus knew he couldn't continue missing work, definitely without risking his job. Mrs. Chen had been a godsend during those early days, offering advice and occasionally watching Emma for short periods. However, Marcus understood he needed a more permanent childcare solution. The local daycare centers all had waiting lists and required extensive documentation that he still lacked. Private babysitters were expensive and difficult to find on short notice. After much deliberation, Marcus made the difficult decision to reduce his work schedule to part-time. This would allow him to care for Emma during most of the day while still maintaining some income. His boss, Mr. Patterson, was sympathetic to the situation and agreed to let Marcus work mornings only. Handling inventory and opening the store, the reduced income created immediate financial pressure. Marcus's apartment rent, which had been manageable, on his full salary, now consumed nearly 2/3 of his earnings. He began searching for cheaper housing options, eventually finding a small 2-bedroom apartment in a less desirable neighborhood. The move would save him $300 per month, money that could go toward Emma's growing expenses. Packing up his belongings while caring for a 2-month-old baby proved to be an exercise in patience and creativity. Emma seemed to sense the disruption and became fussier than usual. Marcus found himself packing boxes with one hand while holding her with the other, stopping frequently to attend to her needs. The new apartment was smaller and older than his previous home, but it had better natural light and a small balcony where Marcus could take Emma for fresh air. The neighborhood was noisier, with more traffic and activity, but it was still safe and had several parks within walking distance. During this period, Marcus continued his attempts to locate Sarah. He had contacted her former employer and reached out to mutual acquaintances from their brief relationship, but no one had heard from her in over a year. It was as if she had completely disappeared after leaving Emma on his doorstep. The lack of information about Sarah frustrated Marcus on multiple levels. He had no medical history for Emma, no birth certificate, and no legal documentation establishing his rights as her guardian. This paperwork vacuum created complications for everything from medical care to enrolling in government assistance programs. After consulting with a family lawyer, Marcus learned that he would need to file for legal guardianship if Sarah couldn't be located. This process required court appearances, background checks, and home visits from social workers. The prospect was daunting, but Marcus understood it was necessary to protect Emma's interests and secure his legal right to care for her. The first home visit from social services occurred on a rainy Tuesday morning. Marcus had spent hours cleaning the apartment and organizing Emma's belongings to make the best possible impression. The social worker, a woman named Patricia Rodriguez, was professional but thorough in her evaluation. Ms. Rodriguez interviewed Marcus about his relationship with Sarah, his financial situation, his support system, and his plans for Emma's future. She observed his interactions with Emma, noting how naturally he attended to her needs and how calm Emma seemed in his presence. The evaluation process was nerve-wracking, but Marcus answered all questions honestly. "Mr. Thompson," Ms. Rodriguez said as she prepared to leave, "I can see that you care deeply about Emma's well-being. However, caring for a child requires more than love. You'll need to demonstrate that you can provide stability, proper medical care, and adequate resources for her development." Marcus assured her that he understood these responsibilities and was committed to meeting them. Ms. Rodriguez scheduled a follow-up visit for the following month and provided him with information about parenting classes and support groups for single fathers. The parenting classes proved to be invaluable. Marcus learned proper techniques for feeding, bathing, and soothing Emma. More importantly, he met other single parents who understood the challenges he was facing. The group became an unexpected source of support and friendship during a time when Marcus felt isolated from his old social circle. One member of the group, a single mother named Lisa, became particularly helpful. Her daughter was slightly older than Emma, and Lisa had navigated many of the same challenges Marcus was experiencing. She shared practical tips about managing finances, finding reliable childcare, and maintaining personal health while caring for an infant. "The first year is the hardest," Lisa told him during one of their coffee meetings while the babies played on a blanket. "But it gets easier as you learn their patterns and as they become more independent. The key is not to be too hard on yourself when things don't go perfectly." As Emma approached her 4-month milestone, Marcus began to see glimpses of her developing personality. She was a generally happy baby who loved music and responded enthusiastically to silly faces and sounds. She had started sleeping for longer stretches at night, allowing Marcus to get more rest and think more clearly about their future. The financial strain remained a constant worry. Even with government assistance and careful budgeting, Marcus struggled to make ends meet. He had sold several personal belongings to cover unexpected expenses and had borrowed money from his parents, who lived across the country. His pride was wounded by his financial dependence. But Emma's needs took priority over his ego. Marcus's relationship with his parents had improved significantly since Emma's arrival. Initially shocked by their son's sudden fatherhood, they had gradually become supportive and involved grandparents despite the distance. They sent care packages with clothes and toys for Emma and called regularly to check on both of their well-beings. You sound different, his mother told him during one of their weekly phone calls. More mature, more focused. It's like Emma has given you a purpose you didn't have before. Marcus knew his mother was right. Before Emma's arrival, his life had lacked direction and meaning. He had been content with his routine but hadn't felt passionate about anything. Now, every decision he made was filtered through the question of what would be best for Emma's future. The legal guardianship process was moving forward slowly but steadily. Marcus's background check had come back clean, and the court had appointed a guardian ad litem to represent Emma's interests during the proceedings. The guardian ad litem, a retired teacher named Margaret Stone, visited regularly to assess Emma's development and Marcus's parenting. During one visit, Mrs. Stone commented on the strong bond she observed between Marcus and Emma. "It's clear that she feels secure with you," she told Marcus. "That attachment is crucial for her emotional development. Whatever the biological relationship might be, you've become her psychological father." Those words gave Marcus's confidence as he prepared for the custody hearing. He had compiled extensive documentation of his care for Emma, including medical records, photographs, and testimonies from neighbors and friends about his dedication to her well-being. The hearing was scheduled for the following month. Felt cautiously optimistic about the outcome. He had proven his ability to provide for Emma's basic needs and had demonstrated his commitment to her long-term welfare. Unless Sarah appeared to contest the guardianship, Marcus expected the court to grant him legal custody. The custody hearing took place on a cold morning in February. Marcus dressed carefully in his only suit, which he had worn to job interviews years earlier. Emma wore a white dress that Mrs. Chen had bought for the occasion, and she babbled happily. In her carrier, as they walked into the courthouse, Marcus's lawyer, David Kim, had prepared him for the proceedings but warned that outcomes could be unpredictable when the biological mother's whereabouts remained unknown. The judge would need to balance Emma's best interests with legal requirements about parental rights and proper notification procedures. Judge Sarah Martinez reviewed the case file thoroughly before asking Marcus to explain his relationship with Emma and his commitment to her future. Marcus spoke from his heart about the transformation Emma had brought to his life and his dedication to providing her with love, stability, and opportunities for growth. The guardian ad litem, Mrs. Stone, provided a glowing report about Marcus's parenting abilities and Emma's healthy development. She testified that Emma showed clear signs of secure attachment and that removing her from Marcus's care would be traumatic and detrimental to her well-being. Ms. Rodriguez, social worker, also testified favorably about Marcus's home environment and his progress in addressing the initial concerns about resources and support systems. She noted his completion of parenting classes and his active participation in support groups for single parents. After hearing all testimony, Judge Martinez granted Marcus's temporary legal guardianship with full custody rights. She explained that the guardianship would become permanent after 1 year if Sarah did not come forward to contest it. And if Marcus continued to provide adequate care for Emma, walking out of the courthouse with legal documentation, establishing his parental rights, felt surreal to Marcus. After months of uncertainty and worry, he finally had official recognition of his role as Emma's father. The relief was overwhelming, and he found himself crying as he strapped Emma into her car seat. That evening, Marcus called his parents to share the good news. His mother wept with joy, and his father expressed pride in how Marcus had stepped up to handle such an unexpected responsibility. They announced their intention to visit soon to meet their granddaughter properly and to help. Marcus celebrated this milestone. The financial situation gradually improved as Marcus qualified for additional assistance programs now that his guardianship was official. He was able to increase his work hours slightly by arranging for Emma to attend a subsidized daycare program for low-income families. The extra income helped stabilize their living situation and allowed Marcus to start saving money for Emma's future needs. That Emma was thriving under Marcus's care. At 8 months old, she was a curious, active baby who crawled everywhere and pulled herself up to stand against furniture. Her pediatrician praised her healthy development and noted that she was meeting all age-appropriate milestones. Her bright smile and infectious laugh brought joy to everyone who met her. Marcus had developed a network of friends through the parenting group and his neighborhood. Other parents included him in playdates and social activities, helping him build the support system that Ms. Rodriguez had emphasized as important for single parents. These relationships provided both practical help and emotional support during challenging times. The mystery of Sarah's disappearance continued to puzzle Marcus, but he had stopped actively searching for her. Several months earlier, he had received word through a former coworker that Sarah had been struggling with serious personal problems around the time Emma was born. This information helped Marcus understand why she might have felt unable to care for a baby, even though he still wished she had communicated with him directly as Emma's first birthday approached. Marcus began planning a celebration. He wanted to mark not only her birth, but also their journey together as father and daughter. The party would be small, including Mrs. Chen, his parents who were flying in for the occasion, and friends from the parenting group. Marcus had also decided to start a journal documenting Emma's growth and their experiences together. He wanted to create a record of her early years that she could read when she was older, including honest accounts of the challenges they had overcome and the joy she had brought to his life. The transformation in Marcus's life was evident to everyone who knew him. His coworkers at the hardware store commented on his increased confidence and sense of purpose. His parents marveled at how becoming a father had given him direction and motivation they had never seen before. Even casual acquaintances noticed that he seemed happier and more engaged with the world around him. Marcus had also grown personally in ways he'd never expected. Learning to care for Emma had taught him patience, selflessness, and the ability to find joy in small moments. He had discovered strengths he didn't know he possessed and had developed a deeper appreciation for the challenges faced by all parents. The legal guardianship was progressing toward permanent custody as the 1-year mark approached. Marcus had maintained detailed records of Emma's care, her medical appointments, and his own efforts to provide a stable home environment. His lawyer was confident that the permanent custody order would be granted without complications. Emma's first birthday party was a joyful celebration held in Marcus's small apartment. Despite the limited space, the gathering was filled with laughter and love. Emma delighted everyone by taking her first independent steps during the party. Choosing this special day to achieve another milestone, Marcus's parents were enchanted by their granddaughter. And amazed by the bond between Marcus and Emma, his mother pulled him aside during the party to express how proud she was of the man he had become. "You've created something beautiful here," she told him, watching Emma play with her new toys. "She's lucky to have you, but I think you're lucky to have her too. You've both saved each other in different ways." That night, after everyone had gone home and Emma was sleeping peacefully in her crib, Marcus reflected on the incredible year they had shared. 12 months earlier, he had been a lonely bachelor with no particular direction in life. Was a devoted father with a clear sense of purpose and a deep understanding of what truly mattered. The challenges hadn't disappeared entirely. Money remained tight, and single parenthood continued to be demanding and exhausting at times. Marcus had learned to navigate these difficulties with confidence and to find support when he needed it. He had created a stable, loving home for Emma and had built a life that felt meaningful and fulfilling. As he prepared for bed, Marcus looked forward to the years ahead. Emma would grow and change, presenting new challenges and rewards. He would be there to support her through every phase of development, from toddlerhood through school years and beyond. The unexpected gift of fatherhood had given Marcus a future worth anticipating and a love worth any sacrifice. 5 years had passed since that rainy night when Emma arrived on Marcus's doorstep. She was now a bright, energetic 5-year-old who filled their home with constant chatter, questions, and laughter. Marcus watched her coloring at their kitchen table, her tongue sticking out slightly in concentration as she worked on a picture of their family. "Daddy, why don't I look like you?" Emma asked suddenly, looking up from her drawing with the innocent curiosity that characterized most of her questions. Marcus had been expecting this question for months as Emma became more aware of physical differences between people. He sat down beside her and chose his words carefully, having practiced this conversation many times in his mind. "Well, sweetheart, families come in all different ways," Marcus explained gently. "Some children look exactly like their parents, and some don't. What matters most is how much we love each other, not how much we look alike." Emma seemed satisfied with this answer and returned to her drawing. But Marcus knew more detailed questions would come as she grew older. He had spoken with child psychologists about the best ways to explain her origins when she was ready to understand. But for now, simple answers seemed sufficient. Their life had settled into a comfortable routine. Emma attended a local elementary school where she excelled academically and socially. Her teachers consistently praised her curiosity, kindness, and creativity. Marcus had managed to increase his work hours as Emma became more independent, and they had moved to a better apartment in a safer neighborhood with good schools. The financial struggles of Emma's early years had largely resolved. Marcus had been promoted to assistant manager at the hardware store, and his steady work history had enabled him to secure better benefits and healthcare coverage. They weren't wealthy, but they were stable and secure in ways that had seemed impossible during those first overwhelming months. Marcus had also completed his education, taking night classes to earn an associate degree in business management. Emma would sit at the kitchen table, doing her homework, while Marcus studied for his own classes. She seemed proud that they were both students, often asking to help with his projects or sharing her own school achievements. The parenting support group had evolved into lasting friendships. Lisa, the single mother who had guided Marcus through those early challenges, had become one of his closest friends. Their children had grown up together, and the group continued to meet regularly for social events and mutual support. Emma's relationship with Marcus's parents had flourished over the years. They visited twice a year and maintained regular contact through video calls. Emma adored her grandparents, and they spoiled her appropriately while respecting Marcus's parenting decisions. They had fully embraced their role as grandparents and never treated Emma differently because of her origins. One aspect of their life that remained unchanged was the absence of any word from Sarah. Marcus had long since stopped expecting her to reappear, but he maintained a small savings account in case Emma ever wanted to search for her biological mother when she was older. He had also kept the original note Sarah had left, along with the few items that had been in Emma's basket. That first night, Marcus had dated occasionally over the years, but had been cautious about introducing women to Emma. His priority remained providing stability for his daughter, and he was selective about potential relationships. Emma had met a few of the women Marcus had dated, but none of those relationships had developed into anything serious. Recently, Marcus had begun seeing Amanda, a teacher at Emma's school. Their relationship had developed slowly and naturally, beginning with conversations about Emma's progress and evolving into friendship and then romance. Emma liked Amanda and seemed comfortable with her presence in their lives, which was essential to Marcus. Emma's 5th birthday had been celebrated with a party at their local park, attended by classmates, neighbors, and their extended chosen family of friends. Marcus marveled at how confident and social his daughter had become, easily interacting with children and adults alike. She was developing her own interests and personality traits that sometimes surprised him. The permanent custody order had been finalized years earlier, and Emma legally carried Marcus's last name. All her school records, medical files, and identification documents listed Marcus as her father without qualification. To the outside world and to Emma herself, they were simply a father and daughter who happened to be a family of 2. Marcus had learned to navigate the challenges of single parenthood with increasing confidence. parent-teacher conferences, medical appointments, school events, and the daily logistics of raising a child had become second nature to him. He had developed systems and routines that worked for their family and had built a support network that could help during emergencies or difficult times. Emma showed signs of artistic talent, spending hours drawing and painting. Marcus had enrolled her in art classes at the community center, where her instructor praised her natural ability and creativity. Emma's room was decorated with her artwork, and Marcus displayed her best pieces throughout their apartment. With obvious pride, the question of Emma's biological paternity had never been definitively resolved. Marcus had never pursued genetic testing, feeling that the results wouldn't change his love for Emma or his commitment to raising her. In every way that mattered, he was her father and she was his daughter. The biological connection, or lack thereof, seemed irrelevant to their relationship. However, as Emma grew older and began asking more sophisticated questions about her early life, Marcus sometimes wondered if he should seek those answers for her benefit. Child development experts had advised him that adopted children often experienced curiosity about their biological origins, and Emma might eventually want that information, even if it didn't change their family dynamic. Marcus had also begun thinking about Emma's future in more concrete terms. He was saving money for her college education and had started researching schools with strong art programs. He wanted to ensure that her talents would be nurtured and that she would have opportunities to pursue her interests as she grew older. The transformation in Marcus's own life continued to amaze people who had known him before Emma's arrival. His sense of purpose and direction had strengthened over the years, and he had developed leadership skills through his involvement in various community organizations. Related to children and education, Marcus served on the board of the local child care center and volunteered with programs that supported single parents facing the challenges he had once navigated alone. His experiences had given him unique insights into the needs of unconventional families, and he felt obligated to help others who found themselves in similar situations. Emma's influence on Marcus extended beyond parenting skills to his overall. Through her eyes, he had rediscovered wonder in everyday experiences and had learned to appreciate small moments of joy and connection. Her presence had made him more empathetic, more patient, and more optimistic about the future. As Marcus tucked Emma into bed that evening, she asked him to tell her the story of how they became a family. This had become a favorite bedtime ritual, with Emma requesting the story regularly, even though she knew it by heart. Marcus sat on the edge of her bed and began the familiar tale, carefully edited for a 5-year-old's understanding. He told her about the rainy night when she arrived as a special gift, about how happy he was to become her daddy, and about all the adventures they had shared since then. "We lived happily ever after?" Emma asked, even though she knew the ending. "We're still living happily ever after," Marcus replied, kissing her forehead goodnight. 20 years had passed since that transformative night when baby Emma had been left on Marcus's doorstep. Now 20 years old, Emma stood in her graduation cap and gown, having just received her bachelor's degree in fine arts from the state university. Marcus watched from the audience with tears of pride streaming down his face. Remembering the scared young man he had been when he first held her as an infant, Emma had grown into a remarkable woman. She was confident, compassionate, and incredibly talented. Her artwork had been featured in several gallery shows during college. She had already received offers from art studios in major cities. Her professors praised not only her technical skills, but also the emotional depth and maturity evident in her work. The journey to this moment had been filled with challenges and triumphs. During Emma's teenage years, she had naturally become more curious about her origins. When she turned 16, Marcus had finally shown her Sarah's original note and shared everything he knew about her early arrival in their lives. Emma had handled the revelation with remarkable grace and maturity. "You're the only father I've ever known or wanted," Emma had told Marcus after reading the note. "I'm grateful to Sarah for trusting you with me, but you're my real dad in every way that matters." Emma had chosen not to search for Sarah, feeling that it might complicate the strong family bond she shared with Marcus. She acknowledged that her feelings might change in the future, but for now, she was content with the family they had built together. Marcus had married Amanda when Emma was 12 years old. The wedding had been a small, joyful ceremony with Emma serving as maid of honor. Amanda had never tried to replace any parental role in Emma's life, but had become a beloved stepmother and friend. She brought her own warmth and wisdom to their family, and her support had been invaluable during Emma's adolescent years. Amanda and Marcus had welcomed a son, David, when Emma was 14. Rather than feeling displaced, Emma had embraced her role as big sister with enthusiasm. She helped care for David and took pride in teaching him various skills as he grew. The age difference meant she could mentor him without the typical sibling rivalry, and their bond was strong and affectionate. The expanded family had moved to a larger house in a neighborhood with excellent schools. Marcus had eventually become the manager of a chain of hardware stores, providing financial stability that allowed them to support Emma's artistic pursuits and save for both children's college educations. Amanda's teaching salary contributed to their household income and brought additional educational resources for the children. Emma's teenage years had been relatively smooth, despite the normal challenges of adolescence. She had maintained good grades, participated in school art programs, and developed close friendships. Her artistic talents had earned her numerous awards and recognition, including a full scholarship to university that made her higher education possible without creating financial hardship for the family. Throughout high school, Emma had been involved in community service projects, often working with programs that supported children in foster care or difficult family situations. Her own experience of being raised by a single father had given her empathy for children facing uncertainty. She found meaning in helping others navigate similar challenges. The relationship between Emma and Marcus had evolved naturally as she matured. They maintained close communication while respecting her growing independence. Marcus had learned to balance his protective instincts with recognition of Emma's capability and judgment. Their bond remained strong even as Emma established her own identity and pursued her individual goals. During her college years, Emma had excelled academically and socially. She had maintained regular contact with her family while building friendships and exploring romantic relationships. Her art had become increasingly sophisticated, often exploring themes of family, identity, as a belonging that reflected her own life experiences. One piece that had particularly moved Marcus was a large painting Emma had created during her junior year. The artwork depicted two figures walking together on a path that stretched into a bright horizon. The technique was masterful, but the emotional content was what made it extraordinary. Emma had explained that it represented their journey together and her gratitude for the love and stability Marcus had provided throughout her life. As graduation day concluded, the extended family gathered for a celebration dinner at their favorite restaurant. Emma's grandparents had flown in for the occasion, beaming with pride at their granddaughter's achievements. David, now a thoughtful 6-year-old, presented Emma with a drawing he had made for her special day. During the dinner, Emma stood to make a toast. She looked around the table at the faces of people who loved her and had supported her throughout her life. When her eyes met Marcus's, she smiled with the same bright expression he remembered from her childhood. "I want to thank my dad, Emma," began, her voice steady despite the emotion evident in her expression. 20 years ago, he could have made different choices when I unexpectedly became part of his life. Instead, he chose love, commitment, and sacrifice. He gave me a foundation of security and support that allowed me to grow into the person I am today. She continued, addressing the entire table, but keeping her focus primarily on Marcus. "Dad, you taught me that families are created by love and dedication, not just by biology. You showed me what it means to be dependable, caring, and strong. The man I hope to marry someday will be measured against the example you've set of what a good father and husband should be." Marcus was overwhelmed by Emma's words and by the realization of how much they had both grown since that first night together. The scared, inexperienced man who had found a baby on his doorstep had been transformed by the experience of raising Emma into someone he was proud to be. Emma's future plans included moving to a larger city where she had been offered a position. With a prestigious art gallery, she would be living independently for the first time. But Marcus felt confident in her ability to navigate the challenges ahead. They had discussed her goals and dreams extensively, and he was excited to see how her career would develop. The impact of Emma's presence in Marcus's life extended far beyond his role as her father. Through raising her, he had discovered strengths and capabilities he never knew he possessed. He had learned to be patient, selfless, and resilient in ways that had prepared him for all subsequent challenges in his life. Emma had also influenced Marcus's perspective on what constituted success and happiness. Before her arrival, he had measured his life by conventional standards that left him feeling unfulfilled. Emma had taught him that meaning came from relationships, growth, and making a positive difference in another person's life. As the evening concluded and the family prepared to return home, Emma pulled Marcus aside for a private conversation. She wanted to thank him once more for everything he had done and to share her excitement about the future. She also wanted to reassure him that their relationship would remain strong despite the physical distance her new job would create. "You'll always be my hero, Dad," Emma told him as they stood outside the restaurant. "No matter where life takes me or what I accomplish, the most important thing I'll ever be is your daughter. You saved my life in every way a person can be saved, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to make you proud." Marcus hugged his daughter tightly, marveling at the incredible woman she had become and feeling profound gratitude for the unexpected gift that had changed both of their lives forever. The baby who had been left on his doorstep had indeed changed his life, bringing purpose, joy, and love beyond anything he had ever imagined possible. Looking back on their 20-year journey together, Marcus understood that Emma hadn't just been the recipient of his care and love, she had been his teacher, his inspiration, and his greatest achievement. The scared young woman who had left her baby with him had given him the most precious gift imaginable, the chance to discover who he was truly meant to be.